welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to make the video I've been dying to make, and that is my personal pick for 5 criminally underrated bands. Now I started doing a list and I got to 45, so what I thought I would do is do a top 5 now, and then my mind will change in a couple of months, and then we'll find another 5, and then we'll find another 5 a few months after that. But at this point in time, I think being the main point of the channel to find new music, find bands that we don't know about, what better to do than 5 underrated bands. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the bands, just enough, just to whet your appetite, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to name a few albums that I'd suggest, and then I'll name a few songs as if I was going to sell you the band. So what I personally think, and some of these songs are so good, I know you're going to love them. When we look at the songs, they are going to be what represents those bands best, in my personal opinion. There's a lot of bands out there. I know that people will say, oh, you know, what about this band, what about that band, and so on and so forth, but these are my 5. 2 of them I'm pretty sure you haven't heard of, or maybe you have. And the main point of this is if I can get one person to go after one of these bands after I've recommended them in the songs, and get someone else to like them apart from me, apparently it seems to only be me that like my top 2, that would be great. So at the end of the video, what I want you to do is I want you to drop in the comment section if you found some of the bands and you like them, or you like some of the songs I suggested. Bang them in the comment section, let's discuss them, because that is my goal. Right, so underrated bands. Number 5, Thunder. Now this band came out in the early 90s. Unbelievable, I mean unbelievable debut album. It was absolutely fantastic. Backstreet Symphony has just got so many great songs on there. I mean really great songs. They kind of missed their boat a little bit because they came out when they did. You know, 1990, 91 was not a good time for classic rock music with punching choruses and big hair. That's when it all ended and grunge came in. Had they been 3-4 years earlier, I think they would have made a big impact. They still tour, although they've officially retired, I believe. I've seen them at Down Road a few times, and they're the sort of band that you see Saturday afternoon on one of the non-main stages, and everyone's loving it because they are just a really good, solid rock band. 2 albums I pick: the debut, Backstreet Symphony, and my personal favourite, which I believe came out somewhere in between 2005 2008, don't quote me on that, is Robert Johnson's Tombstone. That is absolutely brilliant. It's more bluesy and it's less hooky than, say, the Backstreet Symphony. There's less screaming guitars and so on and so forth, but that's the album that really got me. If I'm going to go with 3 songs, we're going to go Dirty Love, because that's kind of their big song, should we say, along with Love Walked In, which would be my second. And my personal favourite, I'm a Loser, which maybe shouldn't be my personal favourite, but hey, that song really gets me. It's pretty much as good as anything's going to be, hard rock wise. Great choruses, great solo, great vocals. They'd be my 3 for Thunder. And number 4, another British band, Magnum. Now Magnum have been around since the mid-70s, and they have one unbelievable classic album, and that's On a Storyteller's Night. Now after that, they were quite large, quite big. They were very successful for a very short period of time, and then petered off. I think they suffered slightly with the fact they didn't have a virtuoso guitarist or drummer or a Gillan type singer, although they all are really, really good. And the slight fantasy element of them, with their lyrics and their writing, is not for everyone, but for me, absolutely love them. I remember seeing them at Hard Rock Hell many years ago, and they came on about 12:30, something like that, and I was with a friend at the time who didn't know anything about Magnum, and I was really, really looking forward to seeing them. And we waited and waited and waited. They came on, and I loved it. But I just remember turning around, looking to my friend, and he looked at me as in, am I watching here? So they're not for everyone, but they are for me. The 2 albums I pick On a Storyteller's Night and Escape from the Shadow Garden. Now, Escape from the Shadow Garden is not one of their big ones, but that was what got me into Magnum. That was the album with the songs that really sort of touched me and made me think, right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at their back catalogue. When you go through the back catalogue, there are some albums you're not going to want to touch. But if you go with the Storyteller's Night and you go with Escape from the Shadow Garden, you're going to be fine. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you're a classic rock fan, you're going to like these. 3 songs for them, I would go with Just Like an Arrow. Great hooky chorus, good time feel, fantastic. Wisdom's Had Its Day, my personal favourite, and Blood Red Laughter. Now that they are over different periods of time, so you get to see how the band slightly changed and they changed their sound, but nonetheless, when you hear it, you know it's Magnum. Catley had a very, very specific voice. The guitar player, although I forget his name, basically wrote most of the music. I think he writes pretty much all of it, and he has a very distinctive sound. So you know it's them from album to album. So, number 3 is an American band. And they've been around since the mid-70s. And they're a bit of a weird one for me because they have all the elements to be a huge band, to be a Whitesnake, or to be in that sort of, held in that regard. And that's a high regard to be held in. It's Y&T. Now, Y&T, Yesterday and Tomorrow, they had an unbelievable album in the early 80s, Earthshaker, which really catapulted them, and that's when they started to be well recognised. And the beauty of Y&T is they've got an unbelievable guitar player in Dave Menichetti, but he's also the lead vocalist and the main songwriter. And what is underrated about him is you literally could have him singing in any band and he'd stand up on his own as a great singer. But also, if you switched him out and you put him in Whitesnake, you would be like, okay, fine, he could trade with John Sykes. Some of the guitar work in Y&T is so good that you just can't dismiss them. 2 albums I pick, Earthshaker and Mean Streak. And I think that's 81 and 84, or maybe 83 for Mean Streak. Songs I look out for, Rescue Me. That's kind of their, again, I'm not saying their big one, but that's their smoke on the water, really. Well, they did have a few others that were sort of same sort of level as Rescue Me, but for me, that would be the one I'd pick if you were going to go out and listen to them. Mean Streak and Black Tiger. Those 3, I don't think you can go wrong with. They've got elements of everything in. It's hard rock. Some of it borders on late Whitesnake. Some of it's almost a bit Saxony to a degree, but then it's very bluesy as well at the same time, so it's hard to sort of make a comparison with them with any other band that I could really sort of get you going that you would know. So Y&T, they stand up on their own. Their sound is very their own, but if you like hard rock with some unbelievable guitar shredding and some great vocals, they're my number 3. Number 2. Now, my number 2 and number 1 could switch at any point in time because they really are 2 of my all-time favourite bands. Why I've put these guys in number 2 and not number 1 is because number 1 has something very, very special, which we'll get on to in a minute. So my number 2 band, another British band, and that's Ten. Now, Ten have really fallen under the radar. They got a great guitarist in Vinnie Burns. I'm not sure how many albums Vinnie Burns played on, but the early stuff was really, really good. They're very fantasy driven again, much more than Magnum. They've got concept albums. They've actually got 2 albums that basically about King Arthur, and they've got another concept album that's very sci-fi orientated. So if that's not your thing, stay away from those albums and just go with their standard albums. Again, they've got great production, and I mean great production, which unfortunately doesn't necessarily transpose to when they play live. They've kind of got that thing that it's so well produced that when they play live, they do slightly lose something. But we're talking about what we're going to listen to when we're at home, when we're in the car, and they hit the mark. So they were around in the early 90s. They're still around now. They've had some unbelievable albums. I found them in the mid-90s when one of their songs was on, you get those little CDs that used to come with a classic rock, and they'd be like a little taster. And I heard Spellbound, and that blew me away. That really did. It's very, very close to Whitesnake's Still of the Night, which they got criticised for, but being quite like Still of the Night. It's not really a bad thing when you think Still of the Night is an unbelievable rock track. So, and again, great guitaring, and yeah, some weird songs in there. So these are the ones that I really do have to get you to pick the tracks, because if you go wrong with these, you're going to end up listening to like March of the Argonauts, where there's cavalry charges and you hear hoofs of horses and battle cries and trumpets and things like that, and you're not you might not like it because it's very on the cheesy end. There's actually a song called 10 Fathoms Deep, which is a great track, but I don't want to put you off straight away. So I'm going to go with, album-wise, The Robe and Babylon. The tracks I look for: Fear the Force, Bright on the Blade, my personal favourite, Barricade, and Spellbound. Now, Barricade specifically, if you're going to just think, well, who's Guy, what's he talking about, don't know this band called 10, am I going to waste my time? Get that song, listen to that, because that is a true representation of what they can do. The guitar work, phenomenal. The lyrics, phenomenal. It really is that good. And at any point in time, I could have them as number one on this list, and could probably put them in my top 5 of all time. They're the kind of band that have got a lot of albums, and if you could just cherry pick a few songs off each album and put it into one, you would have a 10 out of 10. That's not the case with them, so you have to be a bit careful with what you listen to, but when they get it right, they get it as good as anyone else has ever got it. So, my number one. My number one's a bit of a weird one, because the band itself and the guitar player, who the band is named after, are not necessarily my favourite. They are quite a stock rock band in that sense, but the singer, he is something else. He is, on his day, a Dio, a Coverdale, a Plant or a Daltrey, in my opinion. I will be doing a reaction video on him in the next couple of videos, just because I think you need to hear him. And if this video just gets one person to like this guy or this band, then I've won. The band's axelrudipell. Now, they've been going for quite a while, and they had a couple of singers before, Johnny Gioli. And Johnny Gioli is my pick as probably the most underrated singer ever. Not just in rock, ever. His vocals are so good. They really hit the mark, and he was in a band called Hardline as well, which was fantastic. That was with Neil Schon. That was a really, really good album, their first album. It's called Double Eclipse. It might be their second one, but anyway, it's got Hot Cherry on it, and that's a great album. So axelrudipell, the guitar playing is very good. It makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable how close the guitar player, who also leads the band, bases himself on Blackmore. There's a scallop strat with a large headstock, and I believe 10 or 11 Blackmore covers throughout their discography. Now, that's a little bit too close for me. I don't mind it, but for me, for him to be held in such high regard, he really needs to step away and do his own thing. I mean, you've got other people that are heavily influenced by Blackmore, like Malmsteen, who, again uses the same sort of guitars Blackmore did, scalloped it like Blackmore did, but just literally cranked up to 11 and went off and did his own thing. Like Malmsteen or not, he's got his own style, created his own style. So with axelrudipell, the albums I'd look out for are Masquerade Ball and The Quest. Now, Masquerade Ball would be my pick for the song. If you're only going to listen to one, because that's their Child in Time, that's their Stairway to Heaven, that's their oh my god moment, that's the one to listen to. Mystica, Burning Rain, and if you're a big Rainbow fan, like I am, they do a good cover of Temple of the King, more so for Johnny Gioli's vocals. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Dio, but what I am saying is he takes slightly different takes, got completely different vocal style, different vocal ability, but he does justice to that song. I've heard a lot of covers of Temple of the King, and this is the only one I've said, you know what, I wouldn't mind if you played that instead of the Rainbow version, and you can't really get much more praise than that. So, Thunder, Magnum, Y&T, 10, axelrudipell. They're my 5 picks. So, if you like any of them, or you know any of them, you want to have a chat about them, drop them in the comment section. If, hopefully, you watch this video and you think, who's this guy, what's he chatting about? you go away and listen to some and you think, wow, that's a great song, please drop it in the comment section, because that's the goal of the channel. I want to get people to like some of these bands that you might not hear. And also, please, drop in some bands that you think I might like, or that you think are criminally underrated. So then when we do this again in a couple of months, I'll probably find some bands. So then there might be a band that you picked that's on the list, and then suddenly we're looking at, you know, whoever, and then I'm learning again as well, starting from scratch, because, you know, I only got into Y&T a couple of years ago because they sort of flew under the radar for me, and they shouldn't have. And now I'm basically heralding them as one of the most underrated rock bands of all time. So have a little look, see what you think, drop in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video, which I believe will be a reaction video, possibly of one of the 5 bands I've mentioned today. Cheers.